Welcome back, everybody. This is Coach Reese and Coach Loretta here with Coffee with Coaches. I'm sitting with a stranger to my left. Just kidding. This is Deana Nyenhuis. This is my girlfriend. We're going to be talking about her training, her history, how we work and how we coach together, and just kind of the dynamics between the two of us. So this should be a good couples podcast today. Maybe get some tips and tricks out of this one. But Coach Loretta, how are you doing?
I am doing great, getting ready to head off for a relay this weekend with friends. Super excited. There's actually 90 teams that are competing. There's females, males, and then co-ed. So we're excited to see how we can do.
That is huge. And how many people comprise each team?
I think that you can have up to 6, maybe 7. Our team has 4. So,
Okay.
and we're an all-female team.
So that's upwards of like 400, 500 people doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Plus, there's
amazing.
also a 50-mile race going on and a 50K race going on at the same time. It's going to be busy.
Wow.
That is cool.
What's the distance that you are doing and that your team is doing?
We're doing the 50-mile relay. So, and then I'm undecided, but I'm doing between 12 and 15 miles of the relay. We're still going back and forth who's doing what legs.
Wow, that is amazing. And we were just catching up and we were talking about our recovery from Potawatomi. So we're both doing pretty well. We're just kind of taking it easy. A couple niggles and stuff like that have popped up. My right calf, and Deanna's kind of going through some knee things right now, but it's only been about like 2 weeks after Potawatomi. So we're taking it easy. We want to coast it in all the way to Galena, so that way we can have a really nice weekend up in Galena, because we had such a great time last year. It was super fun just being with everybody at the resort and checking out the cool town afterwards. So we're actually going to a Cubs game tonight, so I have off of work.
Oh, fun.
Deanna's going to be working at home. I've never been to Wrigley Field. I actually just called it the Cubs Stadium a couple hours ago. That's how little I know about the Cubs, but that's fine. So it'll be a new experience for us, but that's what's been going on with us.
That's cool.
But let's get into your background, Deana. So
one second, I was going to say my daughter and her boyfriend just went to a Rockies game in Boulder. They were given tickets like right behind like the plate, like 3 rows up in this really great section, and they got on the Megatron. But unfortunately, when they got on the Megatron, the wind had blown and all this dust was in their eyes, so they're like closing their eyes. So make sure you get a better picture.
Yeah, I think it might rain tonight, so we're just hoping that our seats are in the covered section.
Okay.
Otherwise, we should bring our running ponchos.
Yeah.
And I want to get to Deana, but first, another thing you said, I think that's super important is you're just coming off a race, you're still recovering. I have some athletes that are doing some kind of hard doubles. I have an athlete that just came off a best PR marathon in like 3 years or something, and he's running another marathon this weekend. He did it last weekend. He's running another marathon this weekend, a weekend off, and then running another marathon. And so, our strategy is really recovery, right? But it's so hard as runners to remember that we need to recover. And he's like, okay, I'm doing what you said, coach. I'm only going to go, for a short, like 1 mile or, walk, jog. He was like, but I feel fine. I think I could do just fine. I'm like, you always think that, but there's all of these little micro tears going on, things that are happening, our body's healing, and you need to recover because that's all we can do to get you to the next race. Next day, he says, I ran today, and he's like, yeah, I'm tired. So, it's like sometimes we get this mixed perception. And I have a few other athletes that are kind of coming back and I had somebody qualify for Boston last weekend, and in 2 weeks, she's doing like a triple weekend at the Flying Pig. So again, like that focus has to be recovery. Kind of the work is done, right? And now we just recover and get ready for the next one.
It's so freaking hard. Like I love just training. So Deanna's always like, you need to take some like rest time. You need to take some downtime. And I'm like, I don't wanna. Like, I want to be on the bike.
You feel fine until you don't. And then it's like you are forced to recover. So I've been trying to do other things that I enjoy. So I've been getting back in the pool. I've been spending more time at the yoga studio, on the bike, and then little bits of running. But I definitely pushed a little too far too soon. Yep. We went up to Wisconsin last weekend and ran, of course, in the middle of the heat, in the middle of the day. And it wore me out physically a lot. And then I started feeling a lot of the stuff that I thought I was, had escaped after the race, but hadn't.
Well, and it's so tough too, because it's not like, when you have a really good race result, like we both did very well at Potawatomi, it's hard to then want to take downtime because you're like, oh, oh my gosh, I'm crushing. And then it's like, then to just like have nothing. It's like, no, I want to keep building it on to the next, you know?
Yeah.
And there's only a select few races I think I've ever raced in my life where it's like, I've come out with absolutely like nothing wrong, like no nickels, no nothing, you know? So I feel like that's kind of the big thing is just not sacrificing long-term development for your short-term, like wanting to get out there.
Right.
I've been on the bike a lot and I love the bike and it's fun because I've been learning a lot. Like my current infatuations have been volcanic eruptions and Mount St. Helens and the ecology of the area that like changed after the eruption. And then that led on to like learning about the Rocky National Mountain.
I think this is
the
a
National
different
Park.
podcast, Reese. I think you should be on a different podcast.
So okay, so that was tangential for sure. But like, so I love being on the bike and everything, but like,
You
yeah,
can multitask on the bike.
yeah, you can multitask and like, you know, like to a certain degree, like you just gotta like calm down, you know,
Right.
you just gotta
Yep.
relax, not let your short-term like ambitions like sacrifice like your goals that are coming up in the
Right,
future.
right. For
So
sure, for sure. Definitely have to respect the recovery, even though it's super duper hard, because especially coming off a big hard race that you've done well and you've really pushed yourself, you need recovery even more at that point. It's more powerful than actually getting back out there and, you know, grinding again because your body is just not quite ready. So yeah. And one more thing that you said, Deanna. So this weekend I went out in the heat too. So Saturday morning in Michigan, it was 40 degrees. Great, beautiful day. Sunday, we ran at 80 degrees. I like talk about a temperature shock, right? And you know, I had this grand plan that we were going to run on a gravel part section of our trail because it was kind of matching the race that we're going to be doing, and that we were going to do a cut down 10-mile run. Well, I should have scrapped that. It was really a rookie mistake because we go out, it's 80 degrees, full sun, no shade, and we're running straight into the wind. It was the toughest run. I'm like, okay, we should have chosen a different section of the trail, and we should have just like said, oh, we're gonna go to easy today. It's 80, but you know, you live and you learn.
Yep.
and you know, right now we are giving this podcast and we are trying to take our recovery an extra little step further. So let's stand up. Let's show Loretta what we got on right now. So for all the all the YouTube
Nice.
viewers, you know, like they can see what we have
Those
on. We have our
sexy
compressed.
shorts.
Yeah. For everybody that's listening into audio, Deanna and I just stood up. We showed off the compression tights that we're wearing right now as we're podcasting.
Thank you, Loretta, for those.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Thanks for
We
the
actually
hookup.
have someone from tell me the name of the company again. Core Tech, is that what it's?
Core.
Let me look at yours.
Maybe it's
Yeah,
just
this
called
Yeah,
is
core
core.
core
Core.
compression or something like that. Yeah. So we have someone that's reached out to me, and I've been able to supply some to my athletes and was able to give some to some of our coaches too. So I'm glad that you're enjoying them and that they're working for you. Compression can really help our recovery, right? Getting that blood flow going again. So
It's
Mhm.
just like a nice
Yeah.
hug
Hug.
on a tight sore quad.
Nice. Nice. So I kind of want to step back and brag a little because I was really excited to have Deana and Reese on the podcast together today because the last two races, they have won overall spots, right? And so that's really fun. So the most recent one was Potawatomi 50 mile, top male, top female, course record. And then previously it was Skunk Ape, right? It was a half marathon, or it's a different distance
The
there.
half.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you both also won, you know, that too. So that's super exciting. I'm like living vicariously through you, thinking that must feel really cool to be able to go to some of these races as a couple, both runners, both loving trail running, and then coming out with some wins. So let's just talk about that really quick before we get into the dynamics of coaching between partners.
It was special. I'm used to Reese, winning, and me even placing it's a new feeling, and trying to not let it go to my head because there's a lot of good runners out there. But I did a lot of hard work, and I'm very proud of my result. And it was just super special to be able to share it with Reese, and then his parents came down as well for Potawatomi. So that was just an unexpected, for us to both do so well and have them there to share it with us. It was really special.
Right. That is just so cool. I just love it so much. And I love the picture at the end when you come up, and we posted on our social media, Reese hugging you. You can just see how proud he is of you. So that's really cool. I just love it. So I was talking behind the scenes a little bit about like, wow, how do you make this dynamic work? Because I know it probably wouldn't work well between my husband and I because I don't really like to listen to what he says, you know? So like, how do you guys make that work? Because, you know, it's a different dynamic than just having a coach that is not, you know, a partner.
Maybe we should talk about like when we first met and we first started. Because I mean, like I wasn't always involved with, opining on her training strategy.
It was not welcomed for
No.
a good while. It was,
And you know, he was like secretly thinking about it, right?
oh yeah, and like it just, I wasn't ready to listen to him. It just, you don't know where I've come from. You don't understand my body. Only I know it. And then it was, kind of, we got to a place in our relationship where I really welcomed his advice because I wanted to get to the next step. But it was definitely
There was a lot of times when like we would go out for a run or she would go out for a run and I'd go, "Oh, so you did this?" And she'd go, "Yeah." And then she'd go, "What do you think?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, like I have, yeah." I'm like, I have thoughts, but did you have fun? Like, yeah. And then so it was just this background of like I I don't want to sound like I'm judging your training or like but like as somebody who like advises other people on training and then to have somebody so close to you be like, no, I don't want you to advise me on training. I'm not trying to like, give people unwanted, unsolicited advice. So it's more like one of those like, I'll wait until you ask me type of things. Otherwise, like have fun, do what you're going to do in training. And if you have any questions, I'm here. And that was for like a long time in our relationship. Because nobody wants to be told what to do. I mean, these are the things that we do for fun. So she was like, oh, if I have structure to it, it's no longer going to be fun because every single run is going to be planned. I'm going to have to do something. I'm going to have to, it just adds this extra level of like, accountability instead of like, oh, I'm just going to go out and I'm going to have fun and I'm going to enjoy the day. It's like, oh, I have to do this. I have to do that. Which I don't think has been the case.
No, I mean, it was kind of a confidence thing. I didn't believe enough in myself to be able to do the workouts that he would prescribe. I just, so me saying like, I just do this for fun kind of, it took away a lot of that pressure. And it was, I just do what I can and let that be enough. And then I started, building confidence, spending a lot of time with Reese and being active with him and stuff. And I was like, okay, maybe I am capable of more than I tell myself I am. And so it's like, okay, I'm ready to listen now and like help build me. And then he does know me so well that like you work really well with my
idiosyncrasies. And I think too, like when we first started, like it wasn't necessarily me telling her like what workouts to do. It was more just discussions on like overarching principles, like there was a couple discussions that we've had that like, like nobody ever wants to be told that they're doing something wrong. So you try not to like frame it in that framework, but still when you're a couple, sometimes things can like come out a little bit more brashly. And I'm a pretty direct person. So sometimes there would be some discussions that we'd have where it's like, well, most of her training history before we met was to just do more miles. So she would run more, but she would do more at a pace that's not anywhere near her goal pace. So like, let's say like, like Monday through Sunday, she's going out on trails and running roads and stuff like that. And, frolicking in the flowers, having fun. That's all great. But then when the race would come, she'd be like, oh, well, now I want to run, like I want to PR in the half marathon or something. And it's like, but you also haven't trained your body to handle the speeds because you've been running slower in all of your training.
And I was overtraining myself. I was fatiguing myself. And I didn't think that I was, but having it in a plan and seeing what I'm doing and then talking about how I'm feeling after efforts, it was, I was working against myself in a lot of ways.
So I think a lot of our like first discussions was more like, well, honey, like you can't just run more at a slower pace and then expect your body to be capable of a faster pace on race day. It's not used to it. So that's where we start to sprinkle in some of these intervals of like, oh, well, if you want to run 9 minutes per mile in a half marathon, then we need to be training like some at that pace to get your body used to it, and then some just a little bit faster so that that pace isn't a shock to the system. And I think that's where like our like informal formal coaching like started, where it was just like, okay, well, I'm going to go out for a run today. Like, should I do intervals? And it's like, okay, yeah, like let's talk about like a few things that you can do during this run, and I think that like as we started framing it like that, it became a lot more fun because I'm not telling her what to do every single run. It's more like, okay, this one day out of the week, like we're going to do these intervals that she initially found kind of scary.
Terrifying strides. I'm like, I can't do that. I can't run any faster.
But then like you get accustomed to them, you have some trial and error with them, and then she all of a sudden like found her groove, and now she enjoys those things. She enjoys that day. But then otherwise, we just have like an overarching like volume goal then per week. So I tell her like this one day, like make sure that you hit these certain intervals, but then everything else, just enjoy yourself, stop, take pictures. Like you don't have to run continuously or super hard. Just like try to get out there and enjoy things, and that's what we try to do most of the time. But then as we build up for like specific events, then it's like, well, for Potawatomi for example, it's like, well, let's get on the treadmill and let's do some things. Let's do some treadmill and some stair climbing things. Still make sure that we incorporate a little bit of speed because there are like few brief sections of flatness at Potawatomi. Make sure that we're comfortable with poles and with the gear and stuff like that. And I feel like it's a lot more engaging with training when you actually go out for a run and you're like, oh, I see the purpose of this run, instead of just thinking like, oh, I'm just going out for like an hour or two, like slow, but like, what am I working on?
What do you think is like the best change that you've made since starting to listen to some of his advice?
It's helped me get faster. It's helped me learn the skill of taking easy days easy. I'm still working on it. Yes, but there is such a science of that, of letting your body, excel in all those different paces because they come in handy on race day. And other days it was working against me to be constantly trying to go faster and faster. If I go slower, then I'm able to then go faster when I want to.
Right.
And I think as we started to, like, it became, instead of just a discussion of like, hey, you should do like, try this workout today. Like, here are the principles. Then she was like, well, can you write me a plan? And that's where like we started, like writing a plan for her. And it, like when you say like, I got faster, like, she knows that she got faster, but like when I'm looking at her training now, I'm like, holy cow, like you got so much faster in such a little time. Because like basically like the way that I thought about her training was that like she's been doing years of base training with no intensity on top of it, just miles and miles and miles. So when we started sprinkling in some of those faster runs, like it was this time last year was March Madness half marathon, and she wanted to break 2 hours, and she gave it a hard effort, and she gained just over that goal. It was a cold day. You could blame a little bit on the environmental conditions. But when you look at her average pace while she was running that half marathon, it was typically her average pace of all the rest of her easy runs, So we were just talking earlier this morning, and I'm like, I would wager that you could have probably run an extra like 10, or you probably could have run a marathon that day at that same pace. It's just, you couldn't click into anything faster because your muscles just weren't used to it. So
and I was tired.
Yeah. So we incorporated a couple speed days. And then at the end of last year, when she was building up for Tunnel Hill, it was like all of her easy runs were like 8:30 pace, if not like a little bit faster. I'm like, just chill, just calm down, just take it really easy. She goes, I am going really easy. I can't go any slower. It feels so weird now. And then just this past year, she was concerned because she paced the 2 hour and 10 minute group at March Madness. And she was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to run that slow for 13 miles. And that's not to like take anything away from anybody that's, like looking to go those times. They're phenomenal times for sure. But relatively to her, now she's afraid that like, my body's not used to running at those mechanics anymore. Like, how am I not gonna? She was too worried about coming in way too fast, which she ended up coming in a little bit fast. But it kind of goes to show that like, with just like a couple tweaks, it wasn't anything revolutionary that we overhauled. It was just a couple tweaks here and there that just kind of like lit the flame to help like, unlock the fitness that she was capable of,
Right. That's awesome.
And it was also biggest difference in the training is helped me get to these longer distances. I was very comfortable at 50K and didn't believe that I could go farther. And he helped me develop a walk run strategy for Tunnel Hill. And it really worked well for me. I have a hard time taking in nutrition when I'm running a certain pace. Right. So giving myself permission, and especially, coming from a coach saying like, this is a good strategy for you, and me going and feeling prepared and having these, planned times where I take in, that fuel, it was a game changer for me. And it really took away the fear around that distance. And then I was able to do Potawatomi with an even better result. And then now I'm working towards my, next big goal is conquering the 100K distance. Nice. And so it's, helped me get out of my comfort zone, not only, meet that goal, but do it well.
Right. And, I think the things that you're talking about are things that are pretty common with a lot of athletes that we get coming into us are those things, not really doing speed work, because sometimes it's a misconception that ultra runners just run, long and slow all the time, I think. And so I think they miss that piece out. And also some people, it's just like, I'm not going to do speed unless I have a coach to hold me accountable for it, because it's not my favorite thing to do. But then I think I find as people start doing speed work, then it becomes more of a favorite, like once they get comfortable, because it can be kind of a little bit intimidating. Like, oh, am I going to hit the goals? It kind of puts a little bit of pressure on you when you have some, goals that you're trying to hit in your workouts. And then the other big piece is that, like you talked about, the nutrition. Like so many athletes come in, and a lot of the issue that's happening is they're just not fueling well in these long events. And then they're crashing because they're just not taking in enough fuel or hydration. And the run walk strategy works beautifully for that, because we go in planned, knowing that we are giving ourselves like, this is what we're going to do. I'm not walking because I have to walk now. It's because it's planned walk now.
It's planned, exactly.
I'm going to walk, and I'm going to sip, and I'm going to eat, and then I'm going to go. So I think that's
a purpose to it.
Yeah. That was a lot of our discussion too, like leading in, is it's like, you're not going to want to take your first walk break, but you have to. I was like, you want to have you want it to be an option to walk as opposed to being forced to walk. So I was like, the first 6 hours, you're not going to want to walk because you're going to feel like you can keep going. But then, you get to the, back half of the race or whatever. And I was like, and that's when you're going to find out if you did go too fast in the first 6 hours. For sure. So yeah, I mean, it's not all just about speed, like we, talk about like that strategy, like you're mentioning, and yeah, so.
Nice. So Deana, you came in with a background in yoga. You're a yoga instructor, right?
Yes, I did teach yoga for a few years. I'm not teaching now, but it's something that I would like to get back to. Yoga really helped me get to, the ultra distances. When I ran my first race, which was a half marathon, I think I couldn't run for 2 weeks. It really took, it did a number on my body. And then I started incorporating more yoga, and then I was able to recover so much better. Okay. So then circling back to what we were talking about earlier is focus on recoverability. And that has helped my body bounce back in ways that, I never thought it could.
Right. Nice. So are you now using the Run DNA platform? Is Reese actually putting in training plans in there for you?
He does. And I'm on him when he doesn't.
Yeah, we tend to lose ourselves.
I need to know what to do.
Yeah. So after Potawatomi, after a lot of big events, like I give my athletes what I call like unstructured weeks, where I just give them general guidelines of like, hey, before you even like think about going out and running, make sure that you've had a couple days where it's like your body feels good, your mind is hungry for it. So like try not to run, like if a race is on like Friday or Saturday, it's like try not to run before like Thursday, Friday, something like that, And then when you do, just like be super gradual about it, just because I like to give people space in the plan. Like recovery is such a it's such a personal and
So individualized. Yeah.
it's an individual thing. So I never want to put something on the calendar and make somebody feel held to accomplish it, right? And I always
Right.
tell my athletes, like, if it's not in the cards, like, the runs aren't mandatory. Don't make them a stress on yourself, right? But still, even just something in the little square for the calendar day just
Yep.
makes you want to get it done.
Right.
So, we took an unstructured week last week, and then this weekend she was like, hey, there's nothing in my calendar for next week. And I was like, I don't want to put anything in it because I want to see how our Holy Hill run goes, which was Sunday. And as we heard before, like, it was a hot day. It was kind of tough. The knees were a little achy. So I told her, I was like, so I want to do another unstructured week. I'm not going to plan anything because I want her to just wake up every day and be like, okay, do I want to go swim? Do I want to go run? Am I feeling it? Do I need another rest day? I don't want this pressure of like wanting to check the box. And she's a very type A person. So
most runners are.
Yeah. So we want to check all the boxes, right? And sometimes like boxes aren't meant to be checked. So, she got up and she ran with some friends earlier today and she asked me about it last night. She was like, yeah, what do you think? And I was like, well, I don't think it would be a bad idea, but like, just keep an eye on the pains and we'll have to let it kind of inform how we then build back in the future. Right. So, yeah, so she is on me when there's nothing in the calendar. She is a full-blown athlete that has 24/7 access to my inbox.
So she doesn't get the minimum of a weekly contact.
No. No. I think that's something in our relationship too that we have to keep in check, is that like I'm always wanting to like go, 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 and I have a lot of energy, and she always wants to go, go, go. And then when we both can't be going, 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 like in talking, running, it's like, like we still have to keep in touch with the fact that like we are people and not just like athletes too. So keeping family in check and keeping priorities and getting our place furnished and situated and everything can kind of be, conflicting sometimes. And I'm like, I want to go run. And Deanna's like, we need to buy a bed.
Priority.
Okay.
Exactly.
So there is that dynamic of both of us just like always wanting to, like, because that's the way that we just love to live. Like I was just talking with somebody else yesterday about like my favorite time to drink coffee is, after a long run on the weekends at Veteran Acres with my friends. You get done after a couple hours, you're sipping coffee, just talking some smack. And, that's just the type of life that I like to live. And there's not a day that goes by where I don't want to be outside. And, but at the same time, like we got to keep each other in check because we both just want to be doing that like all the time,
Right.
So like Deanna was talking about before when she like needs rest days, I think that was a big thing too, that like, like putting these numbers into, like, I have a spreadsheet for her. I don't think that she's checked the spreadsheet, but I keep running logs for all of my athletes about like total weekly mileage, total weekly elevation gain, where we're building up to, how many weeks until the next event, the focus of the next block, like things like that, So like when I look at that spreadsheet and I say like, oh yeah, we've been building for a long time. Now we're going to take a down week. And Deanna's like, well, I don't want to take a rest day today. And I'm like, but this is a down week, like we have to take some rest. And she'll go, why? And it's like, well, because here are the numbers, like here's how much you've built over the past couple of weeks. Now let's just like make sure that we don't get injured and back off a little bit,
Right. And I love permission. That I have so many athletes that don't want to, like, oh, I don't need a deload week, I'm fine. Well, you might be fine, but if we keep pushing, you're not going to be. So we need to be smart and strategically place these so that you are. And
oh my God.
Yeah, we get into trouble if we don't.
I hear it all the time at the clinic too. And like everybody has this like injury like story where it's like things were going great. And then, it's like, things are always going great.
Always going great.
So when you're feeling great, like let's take a step back, like let's recoup a little bit more. But just that permission to say like, like, hey, like you don't have to do anything today. Like if you're feeling tired and run down, like, I know there was a 6-mile run on the calendar, but like save it for the weekend, because that's when the more important long run comes up that we're going to be practicing for another race or something like that, So
Deanna, so you've been using the Run DNA program, and that's our new app or platform that we use. How is it for you? Is it user friendly for you? Do you like it? Do you like the data in it? What do you like about it or don't like?
it's super user friendly. I love that it prompts you to check in with yourself before you start your activity, which is nice. I kind of need that mental pause and like, you know, not just, oh, I need to go run 6 miles. Well, actually, how am I feeling? How are my knees? Like, is this, you know, the best idea? Am I sick? Like, do I need to do this? I love the stats, the graphics there showing like, you know, my load and recoverability. And there's a few nice like metrics in there. And I love that it's kind of tracking the data and saying like, you know, this injury is more of a acute injury versus like a chronic. And so that's nice because, you know, when you're in pain, you're kind of consumed by it. So it's like, oh no, this is actually just a short window that I had it, or oh, I need to go do something about this. It's been going on for a long time now. So yeah, I love the platform.
Nice. Well, that's good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So do you guys go on runs together? Do you do any of your training together at all?
Oh,
We
that's
do
a good
some.
topic.
So we're very different paces.
Right.
Reese is hard to keep up with. And so
He's got to go slow
sometimes
sometimes too, dang it.
I know.
Well, you know what's funny? Okay, so we try to do as much training as we can together. So I guess like my plan Monday through Friday is to get like my key workouts done on my own. So that way, like if we do something on like Saturday and Sunday, like we can just like I can relax, I can run behind Deana, she can set the pace, and ultimately too, like I I feel bad if I don't like run with you on our runs because I want to spend more time with you and I want to have those experiences of being in the woods and seeing cool things and talking with our friends and even just like just being together and not talking. Like sometimes we're both listening to our own music but enjoying this experience of like what we're listening and what we're feeling with each other even if there's nothing spoken. So like I do value those opportunities. But it's kind of funny because, you know, like when we would first start running together, I would run ahead. And of course, like my natural rhythm, my natural easy pace
Ahead
is.
and backwards and twisting around and making you crazy.
Well,
No, it's just like he's just like way gone. I'm like, I could, you know, just stop and he wouldn't
Right.
know that like
well,
What's the
and
point?
she'd be like, slow down, like you gotta slow down. And I'm like, oh shoot, like I'm sorry, I didn't realize it because I would slow back and then all of a sudden, like I would just gradually get a little faster and faster.
it would wear me out a lot. Like
Yeah. But she wouldn't understand it. And now that she's gotten faster, trying to train then for, you know, like pacing other people to go slower, she's like, this is so tough because it's just not my natural rhythm. Like going slower than usual is hard. So I looked at her and I was just like, sounds familiar, huh? Because I've told her for the longest time, like, I'm not doing anything on purpose. You know,
I know.
It just happens.
But also sometimes we love to go to a trailhead and I'm like, let me just do my thing. You do your thing. And I'll
that's
see you
fun.
back at the car.
Yeah. So like
That's
if
good.
we're
Just
like, you know,
set
on
a
a
time or
group
something and say, I'm going.
Yeah, you know,
Yep.
because then like his easy is sometimes it's too much for me. And I
Right,
don't like being pushed like that because
Yep.
frankly, it wears me out too much. So I don't want this to cost me more.
But and so like there's a lot of fun runs that we do where we'll go and we'll meet people at Veteran Acres. We'll do like an hour loop with everybody. We're all going the same pace. And then usually most people do like one, maybe two loops. But then Deanna and I will then split off on our own. So we get that together time and then we get our separate time because I think most trail runners know that like there's a value in being with other people and talking with other people and experiencing things with other people. But what draws us to the woods is also sometimes that alone time. And sometimes you need that certain level of exertion to like be open to different experiences on the trails. Like I get a different experience when I'm hiking on the trail versus when I'm running on the trail. So sometimes if I'm in my running clothes, it's like I want to get to that experience or that perception level that I can only get when I'm pushing my body this particularly hard. Not hard, but at this intensity, you know? So it's nice because we compromise a lot on like, oh, well, maybe today we're completely together. Maybe at Veteran Acres, we'll be a little bit together and then spend an hour alone and then meet up at the car later, which is fun too, because then we talk about like the music that we learned, the things that we saw, like, you know, things like that. But when we're racing together, no, and other people at the clinic asked me this too. They were like, oh, do you like run the race like together? And I'm like, well, we run the same race, but we don't do it holding hands, you know?
Right. And you wouldn't
So,
want to do that.
but It is fun doing looped courses though, because
then, when he laps me, I get to say hello.
yeah, we get to cheer each other on and give some words of encouragement.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is cool. My daughter and her boyfriend run a lot together. They live out in Boulder, and he's much faster as well. Probably does his training runs more like 6 minute pace. And, so he has to really slow down also for her. But it's really nice because he does that. And I always really respect that he does that. And I think it's just so kind, because it's not easy, like you said, to slow down and to run with someone else. So that's cool. And of course, they run on their own, separate times too. For me, Derek bikes. So sometimes he will bike beside me while I run, which is really torturous, right? And like if I'm doing a 3 hour run or something and he has to bike beside me, that's like going really, really slow. So I really appreciate it when he does that though, because he carries all the supplies, mules for me, and I'm just happily running.
And like, so I'll do that too. We did a run around Lake Geneva and I carried like all of the water, and
Nice.
but as she's getting faster too, like I used to think that our runs together on the weekend were like my recovery days, my like just get out there and enjoy some heartbeats and some breaths and stuff like that. Now that she's getting faster, I'm like, shoot, like some of these runs are now a little bit tough.
Right, right. Oh, that's great. So, what advice would you give, Deanna, to people who are not using a coach? Maybe was in a similar situation as you were, and now looking back and reflecting on where you are now, what advice would you give?
Get a coach. It's nice to have someone in your corner, helping build you up. Reese has a lot of tools in his toolbox that have helped me get stronger. And it's just a different way of thinking, and sometimes that thought reframing it's a game changer. And it's helped me to get to places that I didn't think possible. And so it's helpful, and you don't have to, get a coach that's your boyfriend. Like,
I think too, like there's a value in not thinking. So
Right,
like,
right.
because
having a plan is nice. It takes I'm an anxious person. And so having that structure that like, okay, if I do these things, this will set me up, instead of like just constantly overthinking, like, am I doing it wrong? Am I doing it wrong? It's like, no, this is proven success.
Right.
And it has.
Nice. Yeah, that is a good point. Really good point. Not having to think about it, just doing what it says and trusting the plan.
well, and there's times too where it's like, like we're all independent people, and like we don't follow the plan like to the T, and like that is totally okay. But like when she does have to like modify things now, like because she's been asking questions and she has a little bit better understanding of like why we're doing what we're doing in our running, like on certain days, then she can say like, like, oh, I modified this run because I was feeling this way or something like that. And I think too, like over time, you've been getting a lot better at like moderating yourself, I guess, because Deanna has two speeds, and that's like super slow and super fast. So like finding that middle ground of like oh, like yeah, like we can run super slow, we can run super fast, but then how do we kind of hold that like moderate, like I'm not going all out, like just what
Right.
pacing is, right? And like
Right.
what paces feel at different intensities, I think has been huge as we talk about it, because a lot of these trail runs are stochastic efforts. They're not, like you don't run a hilly 50 mile, an extremely hilly 50 mile, like at the same pace. So
Right,
it's
right.
more about like, okay, what should I be feeling on the uphills? What should I be feeling on the downhills and the flats, and then strategizing the course. And I think that's, being able to identify her body's gears and like what she can do on what types of terrain without blowing up, I think has been really eye-opening.
Right.
And
Well,
dialing in my nutrition and my fueling and my hydration. I get some like runner's colitis, and so learning, what I need to intake. I loved your podcast with the lady from Gnarly.
Shannon
oh,
O'Grady.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was helpful. I have like hyperhidrosis and I sweat a ton, and that can make my stomach go. And so learning how to, keep those electrolytes in my body, or replace them, replenish them, so that I don't get myself into a bad situation that's not recoverable from. So a lot of the soft skills.
We were, and that's something we've talked about a bunch too. And I think that might have been like our, like really like my first input on like how she packs for adventures and things like that is like, she's like, I got hyperhidrosis. Like I just sweat a ton. And we would notice like, uh, stomach abnormalities and colon abnormalities, like on the trails. And she's just drinking water, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So we started slowly just increasing her electrolyte intake. We found a product that, you know, she loves the taste of and how she uses a lot. And we've got the mixture down. And I mean, it's probably been since well before Tunnel Hill, probably
It's been about a year, that I've had
that she
pretty
hasn't
good.
had like crazy.
Yeah.
You know, and like we've all had that experience on the trail where it's like, you know, like the number two comes strong. So I, you know, and those are the soft skills too that I feel like sometimes like it just never occurred to her that, you know,
Right.
like she'd always just be drinking water like on the trails, which
Mhm.
is great, which is, you know,
I
like we
did
need
some
water,
like
but
noon tablets and stuff, but it wasn't enough and it wasn't the right one for me.
Yeah.
So trying different stuff, you know, the whole trial and error stuff and using a lot of my long runs as race practice.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think you don't know what you don't know, right? You know, I have a lot of athletes that come in that say, "Well, I just have gummy bears on my run, and that's all I have." Well, and they're having trouble, you know, or I
Yeah.
just water, and they're moving up to longer distance. It's like, okay, well, then we need to talk about this a little bit because you know that's not going to work for you, you know. So, I think if you don't know that though, you're going to just keep doing what you're doing because you don't know there's things that you should be doing, right? So I think coach can obviously help you with that, but it's been kind of interesting for me watching on the sidelines, the two of you, um, you know, grow as a couple and as also as runners, right? And it's been interesting because I remember back when you were going to do a marathon. I can't remember, was it the Chicago that you did?
Mhm.
Yeah. And so you had a goal and, you know, sorry, Deana, we talk a lot about things behind the scenes. So we did talk about you. And so it was interesting, you know, because he was, you know, talking about how he was guiding you and, you know, it's and you've come so far, like that marathon. What was your time?
I think 3:56 or like just over 3:55 and 3:55 was my goal. I've been trying to break 4 hours in marathon for a while and it like was a struggle.
Right.
And
And
so
now
after,
I suspect if you went back, you would be quite a bit even faster. Just watching
yeah,
your other, you know, other races that you're doing and how much faster that you've gotten has been pretty incredible to see. And then it's just really fun, you know, for me to like see you guys both race and both have really great races. That's like got to be the best, right? Like not one of you coming home feeling like, yeah, I had a great race. You're both coming home feeling that way. So how much fun that is that?
that was Tunnel Hill in a nutshell.
And I was like, wait, this is always reversed.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah, because it's no fun, right? No fun to be on that
yeah.
end of the race.
Yeah. I got my tail in between my legs, like, oh my gosh, like I don't think I'm over this COVID thing. Like, am I ever gonna be back? Like doubting your body, like thinking that there's like some super crazy long-term, like, you know, like health implications from having COVID. And Deanna's just like, oh my gosh, I did great. I'm like, hey, you did great. And then I'm just kind of like, oh man, like
Well, it was very humanizing because I feel like Reese, his abilities are so superhuman, and it's just, you know, it was kind of
thanks.
but like I kind of needed that to be like, oh, he's human too. You know, he has failures, and how does he build back from them?
You know, I love that you say that. I've mentioned this before, and I think I mentioned it with Reese. Is you know, I go into some of these big races with a lot of elite runners on the track, and I also feel like that too. It humanizes people because you get to see even the best of the best have bad days, and so that really is like really nice to see because then it makes you feel like, okay, yeah, like that's normal. It's not that I'm not as good, or you know, I'm just also human and I might not always have the best day. And sometimes I think we get this skewed perception that every race is going to be amazing. And then when it isn't, it can be a little bit crushing. So,
and I think that's what training is in a nutshell, is just systematically like stacking the odds in your favor to have the best chances of the best day that you can, because there's always things that pop up. There's always illnesses. You know, and regardless of how like one individual event might go, it's always a continuation of the story of your story of it. This like one event is not your defining event, you know. And even strings of strings of not reaching your goal. Like there's a lot of people out there that are continually working for years to come under cutoffs and to finish races. And I think there's a powerful story there. There's no failure there. There's a powerful story of people doing what they can with the resources that they have and the motivation that they have to continually like push themselves and keep stacking the odds in their favor. So I think there's more power in the overall story than just what happened in this race. You know?
Yes, absolutely. We learned so very much, but I have to just comment a little bit ironically, the odds in your favor, because I happen to be reading the prequel of the Hunger Games right now.
Oh, nice.
So I'm thinking about Hunger Games when you're talking about putting the odds in your favor. But Ultra is sort of like the Hunger Games, right?
Mhm.
Who comes out alive?
Yeah.
So, all right. Anything else that you guys want to share? Something that maybe I missed that would be relevant?
What do you think? I think we got everything pretty well.
What I really wish I would have done, I wish I would have had you each have some paper and a pencil and I could ask you questions and see if you answered them the same about running.
I can get one. Hold on,
Like
man.
the newlywed game, right?
That's a good one. We'll probably answer maybe differently.
Right, you might.
Oops, I guess I need 2 pens
This
too.
is great. We've got some
I have
sticky
one.
notes.
Okay.
Now I got to come up with some questions real quick.
Yeah, it is.
You deserve this after the last podcast in the game. So now it's your turn. All right, so we're gonna play it like the newlywed game, but we're gonna call it the trail runner game. And so my first question is for Reese. Reese, what is Deanna's favorite workout? And you both can put it on and hold the sticky up when you've got it.
Is that a trick question? Can I answer the rest of it? Okay, hold on.
Rest day, no rest days.
Wait, so do I have to write it large enough for this screen to see?
Well, you can read it out loud once
Okay.
at the same time.
Okay. So do we ask all the questions and then go over the answers?
I think we go one at a time. So like you get to share it now and then I'll ask another question. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So you guys ready?
Yeah.
Deanna, what's your answer?
Restorative yoga.
And
Oh
what
my
did you?
gosh, okay. Yeah, so I should change my answer to that. If it was just running,
Is it a running workout?
if it was workout in general, yoga, but so I put down group run with Allie. That's her friend from across the street.
Would that
so
be
if she does our
what you
running
would've
and it's a running workout,
So yeah, Thursday.
Allie will get her out of bed to go running. Nothing else will.
It's supposed to be a rest day. Yeah. I have some friends that I run with from high school, and it's just our little like social club and just, therapy in a nutshell. It's just
Okay.
It's fun.
Okay. All right. So this one's gonna be for Deanna. Deanna,
Okay.
what is Reese's go-to fuel on the trail?
I don't need to write this down.
Oh gosh, even I'm having a hard time with that one. Maybe I just need to introspect a little bit more. Hold on. Let me think.
And are you going to say what you think, or are you going to say what she thinks you think?
Yeah.
Ooh. Oh my gosh. What do I typically use? If it's a group run.
You can't ask her. You can't ask her.
Okay, hold on. Oh my gosh.
If it's a group run.
Oh, hold on. Okay, I'm good.
Okay, what's your answer, Reese?
Fruit snacks?
Yeah. It's fruit snacks.
We got it, one point. Yay!
Why? Because you can buy them in bulk. They're cheap.
$10 at Costco for a bag of 96. I don't know why parents feed them to their kids. I mean, they're basically just carbohydrates.
Right.
But they're prepackaged. Like, it's super convenient. Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. You get about like 80 to 100 calories per pack, just like a gel.
Right.
It's the low budget way to get some high octane fuel in your life. Some carbo doping.
Okay, one last question. This one is for Reese. What is Deanna's most proudest accomplishment in running? This is fun. We could do this all afternoon. Deana doesn't even have to write it down. She has it right here. Let's see if we can get 2 out of 3, Reese. Come on.
Okay.
All right. What's your answer, Reese?
Her proudest running accomplishment is getting out of the door for the first time, back when she used to tape herself up, have braces on both of her ankles and both of her knees.
Oh, that's good. And what was it? Is he right?
Yeah, it's just being able to run, like when I started.
There we go. Yeah. So, you know,
Let her talk. Let her talk. Just a second. What were you gonna say?
Okay. Just like why run? So my first race was a half marathon, and it was the Chicago Rock and Roll, supporting pediatric cancer, and it was I didn't think I could do it. Like this was, oh my gosh, such a far distance, and I did it as a way to celebrate my cancer anniversary. I realized that I needed to change how I viewed my survivorship. And I felt like the most opposite thing of what I was doing was laying in bed. You know, I was very immobile, struggled with a lot of chronic pain post chemo. And it was, what is the most opposite thing that I can do from this place of, you know, being sedentary and all braced up? And for me, that was running. That was like, oh my gosh, that's getting to the other side. And I started with just walking and then built up to running, and then was like, I'm going to set this goal, and I did it. And then from there, it's just been, you know, continuously building. What else am I capable of? And it was, you know, just really monumental for me to work through that trauma in my life and just, you know, get to a place that I never thought possible. And running has just opened up so many possibilities for me. So
That is so amazing. I did not know that was part of your journey. So thank you for sharing that. That's really incredible and really inspirational. You've come a long ways. How many years ago was that?
I was diagnosed with cancer at 15. So I'm coming up to my 24-year anniversary. So it's weird that I have been, you know, post cancer longer than I was before, but it was just one of those moments where there's, you know, there's life before and life after.
Right.
And for so long, I just saw myself as this sick person that wasn't capable of, you know, being active and setting these kind of goals. And I just had to reframe that and rebuild myself. And, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, what are you running from? And it was, I'm kind of running to this life that I had just written off as not possible.
Right. And I mean, I'm sure you get that mindset kind of comes in, is that you're weak and you're fragile, and so you shouldn't do things. You need to
Exactly.
healthy.
I babied myself, and then I found this phrase that was motion is lotion. So I was literally in so much pain, and I would just, you know, protect myself. And I was like, well, what if I move through it? And so I just started walking, I started stretching, and then that built, and my pain just, it really went away.
Right.
So I literally worked through it by moving, and now, you know, in the healthiest place I've ever been at, you know, almost 40. So
That's amazing. I love it.
Almost 39. Don't let her
yeah. Tomorrow's my birthday.
Yeah. So by the time everybody hears
birthday.
this, the podcast comes out on Friday. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and then tag Deana and wish her a happy birthday too.
Absolutely.
By the time y'all listen to this for the first time on Spotify or Apple, yeah, she'll be 39 years old.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love it. So one last question. How did you guys meet?
At a race.
Well, just funny enough, being shared on the Kettle Moraine page. Maybe we should, yeah, you want to start?
So I was injured at Earth Day a few years ago. Took a fall, had a bone bruise and a stress fracture in my knee. Was signed up to run the 38 miler at Kettle. Went up for a training run, which now I look back at footage and he's in the background. I was like, so funny. We didn't meet then because he was with the fast group up there. Realized it wasn't in the cards. I asked Michelle if I could defer, And she was like, absolutely, if you volunteer. So they put me at an aid station. I was at Duffin, which the 100 milers come through at mile 70 and then again at 90. And Reese comes in at mile 70 in the lead, looking like he's running a 5K. And I was just very struck by this.
So it was love at first sight. Like, wow, guy the trail.
He doesn't really remember me because he was
Come on,
maybe low on calories, then kind of in the, but I was just like, let me fill your water. And then followed him on Strava. And then we ran into each other when I was building back up after that at a race that I ran, and he was supporting his athlete at Dances with Dirt.
So that was like a month and a half after Kettle. And since then, she started, we started following each other on Strava. And of course, nobody here needs an explanation of what Strava is, but she would like some of my GPS tracks, and I would like some of her yoga workouts. And like, I was, I thought she was pretty. So I was like, of course I'm going to like her. I'm going to like her stuff. Like, yeah, you go get it. And now I understand that she's both pretty smart, hardworking, talented, and a fantastic person to be around. But besides the point, so I was up at
and good at filling water bottles at aid stations.
Yeah, exactly. So I was at we were at Dances with Dirt. We didn't know that we were both at Dances with Dirt. I was traveling out of my van at the time. I was supporting an athlete who I was cheering on. And I went back to my van to grab some supplies. I had my backpack on. I was still kind of recovering from Kettle, kind of hiking around a little bit. And I hear Reese, and I turned around and it's her. And I was like, oh, like, hi, how are you? We started talking. We talked for maybe like an hour or so. It was like 45 minutes, an hour. And I looked down at my watch. And I was like, shoot, I got to get to the finish line. Like, my athlete's coming in. Like, I got to go film him. And she was like, oh, okay. So we parted ways. I kept looking over my shoulder to see if I could like find her again. And like, she was in the back of my head for sure the rest of the entire weekend. And of course, I logged all of my activity on Strava, and I did a couple laps around the lake at Devil's Lake, to which she commented like, hey, that looks like a really cool route. And what did you say? You were like, when are we going to go?
No, it was, so he did a workout and then I mimicked it. Mimicked it. And he sent me a message that said, I see you. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, she went up like the next weekend or something.
And then I was like, we got to talking. I was like, that looked like such a cool workout that you did. I wish I would have stayed at Devil's Lake and run around the lake. And he's like, do you want to go? And I was, yes.
That's awesome. So I didn't know Strava was like a dating app too. Oh, that's cool. I love that story. Thanks for sharing that. So thanks, Deana, for joining us on the podcast today. It's really nice to get to know you a little bit more and know your whole story. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And of course, Reese, thanks for
coming on, honey.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And any last things you want to share before we take off?
Get a coach.
All right, you guys. Thank you.
Mail birthday presents to Russell Street.
Just have a good weekend, everyone.
Yeah.
If you're racing, have fun. If you're training, have fun.
If you're recovering, maybe get something else done because you can't be running your entire life.
Exactly. We have a super large amount of people running Earth Day this weekend, Ornery Mule coaching athletes, and we have Coach Matt going to be there. So if you're listening and you're one of our Ornery Mule coaching athletes or coaches, there's going to be a group shot at 7:30 near the finish line. So we would love to see a huge group of athletes there together. Are you guys going to Earth Day?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. So you make sure you're in the picture. 7:30. All right. See you guys later. Thanks.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.